advertisers.
Welcome back. With us tonight, host of News and Views, Joel Heitkamp. Joel, great to have you back.
Good to be here, Chris.
Representative Ed Cricella says, look, the reason these DUI laws are getting watered down is because too much cost associated with law enforcement. How do you look the Deutscher family in the eye and say that to them with any congruency or integrity?
Well, I don't think you can, and I don't think that's Ed's point. You know, Ed was the one that wanted tougher standards. I think that the ball is really in Representative Kim Koppelman's court. He's the one that ran to the front of the cameras and said, I'm the one, I'm going to make this Brielle's law. And now he has to deliver for that Deutscher family, and he has to deliver for the Mickelson family. He has to produce. He's been in that job long enough. He's in the majority party, and he certainly isn't afraid of publicity. So get the job done.
Well, from what I'm reading, he's not going to get the job done, is he?
Well, then what does that say about him?
You tell me.
Well, it says he's ineffective. I mean, if he's in the majority party, he's got seniority, he's chairman of the committee, get the job done.
But so let's ask you this, because I don't think Representative Koppelman's ineffective. The question you served in this legislative body, what are they afraid of? I mean, you look at empirical evidence, i.e. Arizona, and it shows that if you have stricter DUI laws, you're going to lower the rates of DUIs. We're the #1 in the country in fatality in DUIs, and we're sitting there playing around with this.
They're afraid of votes. They're afraid of the reaction of people back home that vote for them. They're afraid of, and
so
everybody
wait. So you're saying, okay, go ahead.
It's a silent group of people out there that are talking to them, not in a public forum, because no one's going to stand up in a public forum and say, I do not support tougher DUI laws. But what they are going to say is, hey, you know how we all grew up. I mean, I know times are changing, but let's keep some common sense in this.
So you're saying that North Dakotans love their liquor more than doing the right thing?
I think that some of these people are hearing from some who have that attitude, and it wouldn't shock me if they do. And I can tell you this, I heard that when I was in there. You know,
what would they say to you?
Well, they would say things like, you know, I live 15 miles from the closest bar, and there's nobody on the road on the way back home, Joel, and, you know, those type of things. That's some of the approach they take. They're not going to say those things publicly, but they're going to make that argument. They're going to make the argument that, you know, we live in a very rural state, and I think that's what some of these people are hearing.
So you live in a rural area. Do you think these laws should be much more strict than they currently are?
I think there's no question the laws have to be more strict. And I do also believe that lost in all of this, because we have some high-profile cases, is the fact that North Dakotans' attitude when it comes to it has changed. I see people who years prior made some poor decisions now saying, let's plan ahead of time before we ever get in that position, you know, and let's call, you know, sober driver. Let's make some choices based upon how we get home safely, and it's deterrent.
Again, I go back to empirical evidence. It shows that stricter laws make an impact on this. Legislators, you get voted in to do the right thing. Let's move on to another topic. Yesterday I had an opportunity. As far as I know, the only interview Governor Dalrymple has done was with me yesterday about him signing these, what I call life bills into law. I asked him a pretty specific question. I want to share this soundbite with you about the question and his response and get your comments on it. Governor, last question for you. A lot of people talking about, obviously, women's rights in this situation. It hinders women's reproductive rights. I'm assuming you had some very intense closed-doors conversations with the First Lady, Betsy. What was her input on these bills?
Well, you know, unfortunately, you know, only I can decide whether or not I'm going to put a signature on a bill. And, you know, there are very, very strong feelings on both sides of this question. And both sides have very legitimate points that they make. And, you know, I am, you know, concerned that this, you know, may not produce any great change, and that, you know, there'll be expenses involved. But I thought that through, you know, as part of the process, and I think that when you put these weighty questions about when life begins up against cost, you know, you have to say that these are important enough questions to put forward.
Your thoughts on that?
Well, it's disappointing, isn't it? I mean, you know, first off, he should have talked to his wife. He should have talked to his daughters. He should have talked to as many people of the opposite gender that he could as well. And to say that I'm the one that has to put, everybody knows that. They learned that in their civics lesson in the beginning. I don't know what Betsy Dalrymple's position is, but I do know what a lot of women standing out in the cold at the Fargo Civic Center and other places like that, what their position was.
And I'm not hearing him say that he didn't talk to her. I guess I just thought he was going to come out and say, hey, you know, we had a lot of conversations, a lot of pillow talk about this, Chris, and that's not really the direction I went. And I was just a little bit stunned by that and wanted to get your comments on it. Now, one thing that's coming out, a group is now out of Grand Forks seeking to do what's called the referral process, basically to put these laws up to a vote to the people. I'm not so sure everyone really understands this referral process. What is it exactly and how does it work?
Well, they're going to try to refer the laws, but I'm not sure that that's the way to go. I think that you can go out there and you can try to make your statement by putting these bills on the North Dakota ballot and saying, no, we don't ever want this to become law, or you can let the courts play out the way the courts are going to play out. Imagine how many people are going to volunteer to carry a petition if they know someone's brought suit against these laws and they know that the court's going to put an injunction on these laws because they don't fit with where the Supreme Court, even at its current conservative setting, is at now.
Stay with us. We always love your feedback. Go to our website, 630pov.com. When we come back, Joel has got an extensive background in water. Is there going to be a flood this spring or not? We're going to discuss that plus the Rutgers situation when we come back right here on. Welcome back. Well, Sandbank Central kicked off today. There's obviously flood meetings in Cass and Clay County, and still with us, Joel Heitkamp, host of News and Views. Joel, you know a lot about water, spent a lot of time in this industry. Is there going to be a flood or not?
No. There will be in some areas. There might be some overland flooding. Short of getting a week's worth of 10-inch rain, I just don't see it. I'm driving up and down the valley 65 miles one way to work every day. And what I see is snow slowly melting away and ground absorbing it. You're not seeing big pools of water. Everybody forgets the fact that the sloughs were already down, the lakes were down. It's not going to happen, but you say that, and then you're afraid nobody's going to turn out to the sandbag. So, you know, I just don't see it happening.
The big question I have, I think, is so what does this do? If it does not flood this year, just like it didn't last year, what does this do to the leaders of Fargo, Cass County that are obviously pushing this diversion project?
Well, it doesn't help their diversion project because you have a big showing of, hey, you know, we're going to flood again this year. We got to do all this. But in fairness to those Fargo officials, this was thrust upon them by individuals from the National Weather Service and others who say this is our projection. And so they look incompetent if they don't prepare for what is the worst. I think there needs to be a quicker reaction time to what's happening in the weather. What's happening in the weather right now when we're getting into the upper 30s, lower 40s, and then going down to the 20s at night is perfect. And it takes away what you and I were afraid of, which is all of a sudden it's 70 and 50. You know.
Let me ask you this. This is a big what if. But let's just say, what if there ends up being no federal money for this diversion project? Where do we go from there?
If the president doesn't put this money in his budget, this diversion project's in trouble. I mean,
Did you say it's done?
Well, it's in big trouble. What that then tells you is there's a recognition by the White House and others that North Dakota hasn't resolved amongst itself this project. And number two, you're short of money, right? I mean, the president doesn't have money. But if you don't put even, that in the budget, what that tells you for John Hoven, Heidi Heitkamp, and Kevin Kramer's, you got a big hurdle to overcome. And no doubt when they knock on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, they're going to say, well, wait a second here. Here's a couple press clippings. You guys don't agree on the project.
Well, and that's going to say, so with that being said, if it's not in the federal budget, then did Al Carlson make the right move by saying, hey, we're not going to give any state money until we know there's federal money anteed up?
Well, it's a chicken and egg thing. Or is the White House saying, well, wait a second, we saw Al Carlson said, we're not giving any money because we don't want the project, you know? And so they played right into the White House's hands because the White House was already looking at, I got to cut. And when the state is fighting amongst itself on a project, you got trouble.
But I think that's what Al Carlson said. Look, we already know the sequesters here. Where is this money going to come from? We don't want to ante up a bunch of money because in case the feds don't end up putting it back into the state's coffers. Let's move on to this Rutgers situation. Coach throwing basketballs at players, verbally abusing them, grabbing them by the back of the shirts. You've been around sports. Your comments on what's going on here.
Jersey. It's New Jersey. Right? I mean, we shouldn't say that because it happened in Indiana and other places, but fire him. Fire him.
Which
this
they
is
finally
not the man.
did,
Right.
but initially when they knew this was going on, it was just a simple fine and, hey, a couple days out of work, and he was suspended.
Right, and they got caught, didn't they? Hats off to ESPN for that. They got caught. Had the video never came out, we wouldn't be having this talk. He wouldn't be fired, which tells you the athletic director should get fired too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I look at this and I go, look, the one thing I know playing college sports, nobody knows what happens from Sunday to Saturday. I mean, I've been in a lot of meeting rooms where There's a lot of F-bombs being dropped and things of that nature. But, you know, this guy obviously took it way too far. And the big thing, obviously, for Rutgers is from a recruiting standpoint. What do you do when this guy shows up at your doorstep going, hey, I want to sit down and talk to your family about bringing your kid onto my team? Obviously, he had to go.
And he's a couple feet away throwing a basketball at his head. I mean, it was, you know.
It was shocking the guy only got suspended. So, Joel, always great to have you on. Look forward to having you back soon. Stay with us. We're going to get to your feedback, some interesting comments about me questioning Kevin Kramer on the use of the word outrage. We'll cover that and much more when we come back. And as always, go to our website, 630pov.com. We'll be right back.